Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. My name is Mike. This is the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, this is the definitive leadership growth podcast. We talk to lots of leaders from all different verticals of business, and we just have discussions. We have candid conversations on what works, sometimes what doesn't work, what are their successes, so that you can seek those shortcuts, and then sometimes what are those failures that they've experienced throughout their career, so also you can seek those shortcuts because you don't want to repeat them. So today I've got an absolutely amazing guest on. I have Eric D. Newman. He is the founder and chief play officer of the Solid Foundation, which I am stoked to talk about. He's a speaker, a visionary leader, an entrepreneur. He's a childhood cancer survivor, and he founded the Roc Solid Foundation in 2009 to help build playsets and provide hospital ready bags to families fighting pediatric cancer. He's also a best-selling author. He's been on the Kelly Clarkson show, and I've got him here with us today. So Eric Newman, thank you so much for joining us today on the Leadership Toolkit. I'm excited to have a conversation with you,
Yeah,
man.
thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. If you would do me a favor, let's just talk for a couple of minutes. If you would sort of share with people what the background is in leadership. What's maybe your personal background? How did you come to? I mean, obviously, this is something near and dear to your heart, and how you got into starting the Roc Solid Foundation and where it goes from there.
Sure. I have been an entrepreneur probably since birth. I was the kid in fourth grade selling blow pops out of my backpack. I realized you could go to the box store and buy them cheaper, and then people at school would sell them or would buy them for more. So, entrepreneur my whole life. That's not where my journey started that got me with Roc Solid Foundation. I'm a childhood cancer survivor. So, when I was 3, I was diagnosed with pediatric cancer. They gave my parents a slim chance that I would be even sitting here today. And so that, with me being a cancer survivor, that would give me enough to want to give back to the community. That, again, is not where the story started. I was second child, 3 years old when I was diagnosed. Then my dad's sister, her second child, 3 years old, was diagnosed with leukemia. And then my dad's brother, second child, 3 years old, was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. So we ended up losing Nicole. Fast forward a little bit more, Shannon and I had beat the horrible disease. And right before her 17th birthday, Shannon had passed away. And so when
Oh
Shannon
my
passed
gosh.
away, there was 3 of us, there was 2 of us, and then there's just this guy. So I thought the cancer was going to come back and get me. So I decided to work hard, party hard, and play hard. I was really good at all 3 of them. Started a lawn care company, sold that, started a construction company. Then I got into site development, home building, just entrepreneur. I owned a bunch of real estate. And in 2008, I ended up losing everything. See, I'd chased everything that the world said I should have. But when I lost everything, the world was nowhere to be found. So what I did is that I did what any responsible businessman would do is I drained my bank account and moved to Costa Rica, big time surfer. And I took that money, went to Costa Rica, and it was never felt so alone in my life. But in that moment, I wrote down in Costa Rica, I'd been there for a little bit, wrote down the word hope on a piece of paper. And from that moment, my mom and dad had to fly me back. But I have been in that moment, I combined my cancer knowledge and then my entrepreneurial business construction knowledge, married them 2 together. And Roc Solid Foundation was formed and founded in 2009 to build hope for kids fighting cancer. And the way that we're most known for throughout the country is that we provide play sets for kids fighting cancer in their backyards. And why is that significant? Because when a child's diagnosed with cancer, public parks become off limits. And so what we do is we bring play
Mm.
back to the child. So that's in a nutshell, entrepreneur, business owner, lost everything. And then I go to my dad. I'm like, hey, I think I want to start a nonprofit. And my dad's like, can't you just do something normal? I've probably owned about 11 businesses in my life. And the one that's done really well is the one where I stopped focusing, making it all about me. And I started focusing on other people, my staff, my team, my board, the families that we're called to love and serve, and the volunteers.
That dude, that's phenomenal. Um, I don't even know where to go from there. I always joke that my audience knows the top of my head well because I'm sitting here taking notes. And let me ask you, so when you're in Costa Rica, so you'd been on this tremendous journey. Um, I like the way you worded it. You said, "Hey, what any responsible person would do,
Of
you
course, like just
gotta."
drain the bank account. It's great.
Do you remember what was? So you said, "Hey, I wrote down hope." what was the turning point? Like what was that thing? Do you remember? Was there a linchpin that said, "Hey, this is where
Oh
you're
yeah.
headed"? Or was it just like you're hanging out on the beach and you're like, "Yep, I've got to do that." And then what was that thing?
So I was at Rock and J Surf Club on the Caribbean side in Costa Rica, and they were having this huge party. I went back to my hammock, and no one, like, surrounded by people, but never felt so alone in my life. And it just all hit me. I had my possessions, that because of where I was sleeping, I had my possessions on top of me, my surfboard underneath, and then I pulled out the journal that I'd never journaled before. I thought it was diary, like using a diary. So I stayed away from all that
Sure.
stuff. And I pulled it out. And when I pulled it out, I opened to the middle of the journal and I couldn't write anything. And I got overwhelmed by emotion. I dropped to my
Mm.
knees and I ran from cancer. I ran from my faith. I ran from everything when Shannon passed away. And in that moment, I was on my knees and I prayed, screamed, yelled, whatever you want to call it. And I said to God that he made a mistake. He kept the wrong one. Shannon was so much
Mm.
better than me. So that I was like, you made a mistake. And so I lead by faith. So I believe that God doesn't make mistakes. But in that moment, after I had just yelled out, cried, and like just laid it all out, almost face down, like I don't know what to do, I sat up and I just wrote down a 4-letter word, hope, HOPE. And from that moment, I'd love to tell you, it was a huge transfiguration. It wasn't, but for the
Mm.
first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken anymore. I was still broke, had no money, but I wasn't broken. So that
That's
was
a
a
strong
defining moment that changed everything for me. And then fast forward a little bit more, I came home to a fundraiser for our local children's hospital, which got me interested in the nonprofit world. Um, and while I was waiting to present a check, a little kid ran past me, attached to the IV pole, and his mom stopped in front of me and asked what I was doing. And I proceeded to tell her about my cancer journey in a lot more
Mhm.
detail than I would just shared with you all. And she started to cry. And she said that I give her and her husband hope that her
Mm.
son will be in my seat one day. And instantly, I knew that what I've been called to is to love and serve the pediatric cancer community and to stand in the gap for these families as long as I'm called to this ministry.
I that it's touching to hear you share it, and it's crazy how uh, I think God puts people in our path. So it's wild. You probably didn't know when you're sitting in Costa Rica writing hope, and then all of a sudden, fast forward to this time, and I don't know the time gap between that, but then she's talking about giving hope. It's just mind blowing to me, and this isn't always where the show goes, but I think it's a huge part of leadership is being able to listen when we have those divine moments.
Right.
I think so often leaders we get bound up with the direction that we're headed. I mean, you commented earlier, and I think it's you very eloquently said, "Well, hey, I stopped focusing on myself and started focusing on others." And I think as leaders in any business, we get into that grind and we work so hard and we're working in business and we're headed in this direction and we're chasing that vision. And I think because it's even in the word, right? We're chasing vision. It's by sight. We go
Right.
after it by sight, and we lose that sense of sort of, for lack of a better term, divine hearing, slowing down and being able to listen when God's
Right.
like, "Oh, I'm just going to drop this person here, and you need to hear this." And sometimes we'll bypass it. At least that's what I'm hearing you say.
Oh
Is
yeah. No, it changed in moments. I think life happens in moments.
Mhm.
Most people miss moments because we're so focused on movement. We're so focused in
Mm.
this fast-paced world that moments have the ability to change the direction of your life. If you can figure out how to master the moment, again, like mastering it, meaning whatever that moment is that you're trying to clearly define. And if you can just for 1 second as leaders, now I'm still like Mike, don't get me wrong, like I'm a go-getter, I'm a charger, I'm
Sure.
here for a good time and a short time we're going to change the world. But I believe as leaders, especially depending on where you are in the art of the start, or if you're 10 years in, or Roc Solid's about to be 16 years,
That's
um,
awesome.
we need to stop and focus on the moment. Because if we can master the moments of what we're doing for our clients, right? At the end of the day, you're in a business, you're a leader, everyone has a client, everyone has a customer. and what moment are you mastering for them? And so Roc Solid's mastering that moment when a child comes around the corner and they see the play set for the first time. Guess what they're not thinking about? Cancer. That is hope in the moment. And then guess what? You look at the mama bear and papa bear that are trying to keep everything together, and then they see their kids smile and play, and you see them take a deep breath. They're a normal family. And that's the power of the moment. And then the volunteers that are on the project, they created that moment, and that's now their moment.
Dude, that's so powerful. It's crazy because I think we do get wound up outside of that. You said, we miss the moments because we're focused on the movement. Whether we're focused on the movement of the thing in business, we're focused on the movement moving forward. We're focused. I have to imagine, and my God, I can't even imagine, because having a child with cancer, like as you're talking about this, I get a little teary eyed because I got such a soft spot for kids, and I'm so blessed. My kids have, knock on wood, they've always been healthy. And so it's hard to imagine, but I still have that soft spot in my heart. And so when you're sharing this, and it's like, I can just be in that place for a minute that you're saying, hey, they're not thinking about cancer. They're just thinking about, dude, I get to go play again. Right? I get to go hang out
Mike,
with this.
you never had to be taught to play. Not a single human ever had to be taught to play. But the first thing taken from a child diagnosed with cancer is the ability to play. See, you and I, for some reason, when we grow up, we start looking at things of what they currently are, right? And it's either the world teaches you or your past experience. But man, the gift of play and what play allows a human to do is to escape the current reality of what they're living in. And that goes across the board. And I believe as clearly as I'm looking at you that play defeats cancer. It doesn't cure it. But man, we just help kids forget about it. And that's what we're doing.
That's one of those things that play, I can just see the equation, right? That play helps to create joy, that reminds us of faith, that you can lean into all of those things so much in the moment, as you're saying, that there's a lot of healing properties in that, man.
Right.
So a couple of things, just so I don't get too far in and forget, because I have a tendency to do this. We start talking right away. For anybody, if you're wanting to connect with Eric, or you're wanting to connect with the Roc Solid Foundation, or you're wanting to make a donation or get involved, and I'm saying that just because that's where it's speaking to me at the moment, I would encourage you a couple things. One, you can certainly check out, is it Roc Solid Foundation .org. So, but it's one, it's ROC SOLID Foundation.org. Also, you can check that out. I'll put it on the screen here. Go to linkedin.com/company/Roc Solid Foundation. Again, it's ROC SOLID for anybody maybe listening on the audio podcast. And same thing on YouTube as well. To Roc Solid YouTube.com/Roc Solid Foundation. So I would definitely say check out what Eric's company is doing, what this company is doing, just because, like I said, for me, it's phenomenal. Just getting it. And here's the crazy thing. I talked to so many different people, Eric, different entrepreneurs, different verticals of business, like I said. And it's one of those, sometimes you don't know exactly what to expect. And so even as I'm sitting here talking and listening to you and receiving that, I always want the opportunity. I learn as much from my guests, and then I know, like we were saying, hey, how do you affect one person, and how does that affect someone? I didn't know that was I didn't know the depth of it. And I think that is so cool. Like I know that it said, hey, provides play sets for children going through this, but I didn't connect the dots that it's like you're providing a play set in their home, in their safe space, to their family. Like, that's awesome. Kudos to you, man. That is awesome.
Thank you. A lot of good people that make this thing work, man. It's the power of the team. It's the power of community. It's amazing what's happening.
No, just phenomenal. If I may ask, because one of the things I always want to try to give people tangible steps, more than just the overarching strategy, but what are some of the tactics? And one of the things I've latched on to, because I have a good friend that's always talking about the moments too, right? Life happens in the moment. And I'm just curious, from a leadership perspective, and from where you're at, in your journey, because I feel like you're really perceptive to the hearing of this, do you have a process that you realize that you go through, or do you have a couple of steps that you could tell somebody, hey, here's something that would allow you to be in that moment. Here's something that would allow you to take in that moment. Do you have, or is that just an innate ability that Eric's got and you're like, hey man, I just do it? What's something that if you realize, hey, I need to slow down and take this in?
No, I think that the best gift that you can ever give a human, for-profit, nonprofit. And again, like I'm an entrepreneur. I was in the for-profit world for 20 years, and then I started a nonprofit and they put me in this aquarium. I was almost like Finding Nemo. I'm like, guys, don't you realize like we're in captivity? There's a whole world out there where we can just do things different. We just need to identify and know who our customer is. So I would think from a business standpoint, clearly define your customer, know exactly who they are, and know what they want. And then I read a book about 16 years ago, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And then I would boil it all back down. If you haven't read that book, you can go to ChatGPT and you can find the 5 top points on it. You can go to his YouTube channel. One of the best books that I've ever read, but it shifted everything for me. If you can identify the why, then the how becomes like, hang on to the why, and the how can change. And I think Bill Walsh once said, if your why is strong enough, you'll always figure out how to do something. And so for us at Roc Solid, and then if you look at it from a practical standpoint, to identify that moment, you can't figure out what the moment is unless you know who your customer is. Once you know who your customer is, so for us, kids fighting cancer, also the parents, the volunteers are one of our customers, and we boil everything down to a life-changing experience for them. So if we throw a gala or a gala, I don't even know how to say it, but it's a fancy event.
I say gala. You say
there
gala.
you go. So, and I'm trying to be practical too, because there are practical ways, but it's identifying. And what I've asked myself and what I ask our team is what do they need that I wish that I had? And that goes a lot into the ministry or the nonprofit side, but identifying the moment, you always know that you've created a moment to where people pull out their phones and they want to capture it. And so everything we do, we boil plate it down to like, that moment's not clear enough. Moment's not clear enough. And I think Einstein said it. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, it's not simple enough. And so simplicity is expensive. Simplicity is super hard. But we boil everything down to a moment. And then I don't know if that's practical enough, but we lead and guide off of the values. The values dictate the moments. And then from that, we're customer obsessed. There's only 2 other businesses out there, Amazon and Disney, that have ever proclaimed that they're customer obsessed. I'm fascinated with both of them. I've read all their books. And Roc Solid Foundation is customer obsessed. What are we obsessed over? Owning the moment to create the moment that creates the life change.
All great information. So here's a couple things that I'm hearing you say, and then I want to circle back for a minute. You walk through, because I said like, hey, if we miss the moments, and the question for anybody listening, and I recap this a lot just so I make sure that I'm getting it, the download.
I hope I'm not confusing you, man. They call me a fortune cookie sometimes. So
no, maybe a fortune teller.
There we go.
So I said, hey, how can you stop and acknowledge those moments? And a couple of things that you said, who's the number one, who's the customer, right? Who's the person that you're talking to? So it's not, we, in the business world, we talk about the customer, but depending on the world you may be in, it's who is that person that I'm talking to? And then a few things that you said, number one, you got to define that person. You got to define what it is that you do. And then third, you said, read the book, Start With Why, right, by Simon Sinek. And then you came back around and you said that allows you to be moment focused, and then also be customer or be human obsessed, right? And I rework it a little bit. Like you have to be person obsessed. I have a good friend who's frequented this show with me. And one of the things that he said, and it's so profound and it's so simple, and you'll probably appreciate this, Eric, is he's like, look, for people that want to be leaders, the number one thing is you have to like people. If you don't like people, what are you trying to accomplish? And so whether it's the way you're wording it, being customer obsessed, but being people obsessed. So I want to go back here in just a moment, because I think this point that you're saying, hey, defining the customer and starting with why, and why do I do what I do so that I can find that what. Can you, thinking back to, you said you started Roc Solid Foundation in 2009. And so when you took off the ground, and I want to lean into this a little bit for that entrepreneurial leader, whether it be in the nonprofit world or in the sales and marketing or business world, because I think there's a lot of value in this. One of the things that you stated when we said, hey, let's, talking about some suggested topics, one of yours, and I think this whole conversation surrounded, is turning that pain you experienced into this passion that drives the business and the nonprofit now. But when you start off, you're saying to people, well, define who the customer is. Who's the customer? When you're leaning in, if I'm starting a business, whether it be a nonprofit, if it's a sales organization, a service organization where I want to serve others, and I say, okay, well, I know I've got this thing. I have this idea. It's buried in me, and I've got this flame burning bright, and I know I got to chase that. Besides defining the customer, what other advice would you give? Do you remember when you were starting Roc Solid Foundation, what was the process that you used to say, hey, we're going to start off and do this? What would you maybe recommend for people to do the same? And then thirdly, what would you say, hey, I did this and really screwed it up, so don't do that?
Oh man, I don't know if we have enough time for the screw ups, but I would say for me, I never used to journal. And then I'm a big believer in brain dumping. So before you do anything, I think you need to identify the why, going back to Simon Sinek. And I also believe if you have that desire and you go to bed thinking about it and you wake up thinking about it, write it down. And that's what I started doing. I wrote it down. I wrote the idea down, start nonprofit. Then I circled it. And then I went back to my journal. I'm like, okay, I started researching what other businesses were doing. And then I tried to partner with other organizations, and that didn't really work too well. And then from that, I just did my market research. And then from that, I went to Google and I started Googling Google image of kids fighting cancer. And then I just noticed that they weren't smiling. And so I'm like, okay, the industry that I want to get in is, how do you put a smile on a child's face? How do you put a smile on a child's face when they're sick? And then that's when we landed on play. And I think the best thing about entrepreneurs and a business owner or whatever it is, but for me as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs see problem, fix problem. See the problem, identify clearly the problem that you're trying to solve. Either it's in a sales industry, vacuums, or you want to build a home, or you're in the mortgage industry, whatever industry that you're in, clearly identify what problem that you're solving. And then on that same journal pad, trace it out. And then how will you solve it? And then once you get to the how, then you have to then refocus. And how do you make it as simple as possible for your customer, for the person, for the problem that you're solving? How do you make it as simple as possible for your customer to have that problem solved? And so where I messed up tremendously is out in construction. I was focused on not my customer. I was focused on my bank account. I was focused on me. I didn't care two rips about the people that worked for me. I was very me focused. But in business, the only thing that truly matters if you're starting this business is the problem that you're trying to solve for the customer who you're trying to solve it for. And then if you can boil all that down, clearly identify the problem, make it as simple as possible, then from that helps identify your customer, that helps identify your marketing strategy, that helps identify what your website looks like. Everything affects everything. But if you don't know the problem that you're solving, even if you're making a flower vase, like, what problem is that solving? Well, it's solving that someone has a beautiful flower that they need to put water in it. Well, that thing needs to hold the water better than any other vase out there. And I know that's a simplistic aspect of it, but that's what gets us to the customer obsession, the customer focus. And if you're in leadership, leadership is influence. John Maxwell says that.
Love that. Yeah.
The best thing that you can do if you're looking to be a leader is to throw out everything you think good about leadership. It's a Ponzi scheme sometimes. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, you think a leader is going to have this great office, you're going to be able to play golf all the time. A true leader cares more about the person sitting in front of them than they do themselves. And you can go down Ken Blanchard servant leadership. You can go down multiple different ways. But the best gift you can give someone, and I believe that empathy is genius. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't have empathy, then I wouldn't allow you. I don't think you should be in leadership. The best gift you can ever give someone is yourself. Yes, you can give them a paycheck, but most leadership to help someone truly, to help lead someone, you got to sit in pig crap, man. The best way to help someone out of that pig crap is to get down in it with them and to show them and to help them out. And for me, like one of the slogans or one of the sticky statements that we say at Roc Solid Foundation is I become less, you become more. And that's been a statement that I've been using for the last 16 years. Like, I can't be everywhere. So I have to become less in all of this. I need to focus more on my team. The better I love and serve my team, the better they can love and serve them. Who is them? Kids fighting cancer, my volunteers, my donors. The better I become less, they become more. I know that was a long answer, but again, in all of that, there was a lot of failure to where it's like, it's about me. And even it still happens that way. I don't have it all figured out, but I have to become less, they become more.
No, I think that's huge. And I think that it's very easy. I do love that. I mean, that's one of the ways that you multiply yourself. You mentioned Maxwell. I love John Maxwell. I think that is the most distilled down definition of leadership. Leadership is influence. Well, how do you influence people? I think, you know, for me, I very much wear my faith on my sleeve as you're talking about servant leadership and so forth. My opinion is Jesus was one of the best leaders to have ever walked the earth, because that was the number one guiding principle is you serve and love others, right? And for goodness sake, that has carried over for generations.
Right.
I love the fact that
he gave
absolutely
himself. And so the best gift you can ever give anybody is yourself.
Absolutely. I love the fact we're on the Leadership Toolkit, and he says, yeah, throw out everything, throw out every leadership book you've ever read.
Just kidding.
No. I think there's a lot of merit in that comment, because I do think the view when so often leadership, the title, like when I become a leader, when we look at leadership, the definition of leadership, there's a certain level of prestige that is often associated with that, right? We go, like you said, that's the corner office, it's this, but you're 1,000% right when you say, hey, the best way you can do is you get down in that crap with them and you help them. I love the fact when I was talking about it, and I said, and just to go back in time a minute, because I did write all these down. I want people to write it down and just to share as we're talking. And I said, hey, what are the things that you saw as successes getting started in business, and what did you fail at? And I distilled it down to 5 things in a statement, because one of the things you said, number 1 was identify the why, which we've talked about.
Right.
Number 2, you said write it down and journal it. I think that's such a powerful statement. When we write things down, they become real.
It becomes out there, and then talk about it. And people may tell you dumb, but cheers to the crazy ones that think they can change the world, because they might just do it.
I no, absolutely agree. The third thing you said, which I thought was interesting, you said, hey, I started trying to partner with others. I started to do some market research. I started to do these pieces, look at what other people are doing. And so I think that's because you said that, and it was a real brief statement. I think so often that's underrated in business. Like we do, not that we want to copy what others are doing, but I think it's valuable to look out there and see what else there is. Who do we align with? Who don't we align with? Right? What are these people that are doing that's successful, and what are they not? I like the fact that you said, look, man, I just Googled it and I saw what's the common theme. And I think so often, especially if we're going to start, if you're out there listening and you say, hey, I'm going to start this business, you don't have to have all the answers to all the questions.
Correct.
And the reality is you don't even have all the questions right now. So do like Eric's saying, first off, just sit down and Google it and see what the results are. And that shows a lot of perspective too, that you're like, hey, I just put it in there and I said, what's the common thing among these images? What's the common thing in this? And then the fifth, and I wouldn't say these are steps. As Eric was sharing this, what went through my head is it's more of kind of a circle, right?
Correct.
Because you're like, okay, identify the why, write it down and journal it, partner in market research, Google it and see what's out there. And then you said 5, make it simple. And then
Right.
once you're doing that, I think you continue to travel that circle, right? Well,
Constant
okay, did we
evolution.
distill this? What's that? Yeah,
It's
constant
constant.
evolution.
Yep.
And then one other thing that I really like that you said is I went from being me focused to and to problem focused and customer focused. And when you're saying problem focused, it's not that you focus on all of the problems in the business. I want to be clear if someone's just tuning in at this point.
Yes.
It's that you focus on what is the problem I'm solving, right?
What's the problem I'm solving? Right. That problem that you're solving will then create a whole bunch of other problems if you're really good at solving that problem. And that's keeping the
Absolutely.
main thing.
So let me ask you, when you started actually, I'm going to pause for another moment here. Just a couple of things, because I did put this on the screen too. If you're not already connected with Eric, I would encourage you, for anybody listening, anybody watching, anyone that wants to get involved with this, check out the Roc Solid Foundation. Their web address is rocsolidfoundation.org, and it's ROCSOLID Foundation, FOUNDATION.
I was
.org.
say,
Yeah. I'm still human, right? My brain doesn't
yeah,
work
man,
that fast
me
sometimes.
too.
And then also you can connect with them on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn-company- or /Roc Solid Foundation. And same thing at YouTube if you want to see some of the things that they're doing. I didn't get a chance to look at your YouTube channel. Do you have some of the reactions and some of the stuff? What do you share on that YouTube channel? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, we capture the reveals. I'm very big that stories stick and facts fade, and so we capture stories. We have an in-house videographer that, again, we're capturing these moments and we're showing the world how they can be a part of the moment. So yeah, our YouTube channel, our team does a phenomenal job capturing life creatively, sharing the stories that create the moments.
That's super powerful, man. So let me ask you another thing. So I encourage everybody, go check out what Eric is doing. Like, it's phenomenal, and it's mind blowing to hear you share it. Like I said, it's touching. It really is. To not know fully and then sit in here with a conversation with you is just it's phenomenal. Really is.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So when you're getting started on all this, it's 2009. You say, okay, hey, I've got it. I've been through some of this. I've done the market research. You said you mentioned it to your dad. Was that what you brought up?
Yep.
And so how do you, if you're starting out, and I know you got to go back in time a little bit, but this is one of those things that gets etched on our memory. When you're starting out something like this, how do you answer the questions and how do you overcome the fear?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So I'll never forget. So entrepreneur, my dad's never given up on me. He's always been the guy that's like, hey, listen, don't forget, if you beat cancer, there's nothing in this world that you can't do. And I took that literal. I started business after business, failed. They bailed me out. So I come back to Costa Rica, did this fundraiser, said, man, I think I'm supposed to start a nonprofit. And he was like, just go to the shipyard, go work, go for it. I had a lot of job offers on the table.
Sure.
I was like, nope, I think I'm going to start a nonprofit. So much so that my uncle was in charge of hiring for the railroad. And they took me out to lunch and this is what you need to do. You're about to get married. You failed miserably. When I first started in 2009, I would go to accountant attorneys and they would tell me it's the worst economy since the Great Depression. Only millionaires start nonprofits, that you've just lost everything. You've lost all the trust in the market. This is the dumbest idea. You're going to fail. And I had multiple people that would not help me file the 501c3. And I didn't even know what the heck that meant. So
Sure.
In that moment, though, the difference was I had just chased everything and I had a lot of money. I had the boats, the houses, and then I lost everything. But what I realized is I'm not a poverty gospel guy either. I like nice things, man.
Yeah.
But what I realized in that is I'm going to do it different. I've learned a lot, but I'm going to do it different. And I'm not going to be a me focused. I'm going to be a we focused. And so I remember, when everything changed, they're like, how are you going to raise the money? I was like, I don't know. How are you going to build the first playset? I don't know. We sold Krispy Kreme donuts for the very first playset build, and we cornered the market on that. And what I realized is that after we sold the donuts, we built the very first playset, and that little girl came around the corner. I had wrapped my head around the business model, but when that little girl came around the corner, I wrapped my heart around it. And there is a difference. And so I'm trying to answer it the best I can, but like, thank God we did not listen to people when we first started. And sometimes the people closest to you, when you have an idea, it looks crazy to them. But man, that's that burning passion, that desire of like, I go to bed thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. At the end of this life, I remember sitting with my dad and I looked down and said, Dad, like, if I don't do this, I'll be 85, 90 years old on my deathbed and I will regret it. I'm not going to live life in regret, and I'm going to do it. And dropping the F-bomb, right? I say that a lot, dropping fear long enough to take action. And I tell my daughter this, she's a competitive swimmer. She's up against some pretty competitive people. All that you have to do is have the courage to jump in the pool and swim as hard as you can. And that's what I've done for the last 16 years. And it's awesome, but it's exhausting. But man, if you're listening right now and you got that burning desire and there's people close to you telling you that it's a dumb idea, but if you go to bed thinking about it and you wake up thinking about it, I encourage you to have enough courage to jump and swim as hard as you can. And if you only help one person or you sell one sweatshirt, focus on the one, what you hope to do for the many, you'll arrive at the many. But if you focus on the many and you miss the one, pack up and go home.
I love that as you're talking about it and you're saying, look, you just got to jump, you got to, in the pool analogy, right? Or out of the plane or wherever. I think too, there's a lot of, like I can hear the passion in your voice when you're sharing that. And I think one of the things that I want people to hear also, and this is just my opinion, Eric, so you correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't mean like, hey, jump off the deep end and quit everything this minute. Now it could, depending on if you're in that position.
But I worked for free for the organization for 5 years. Yeah. So I didn't get a paycheck for 5 years and I did full-time construction.
Well, so there's the key, right? You were working for the organization and doing full-time construction.
It's yes and, right.
Yes, and
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No. Yeah, that's what I want people to hear and see is it's yes and. So if you're doing whatever the thing is that pays the bills, right? Well, I got a Capital One statement coming in the mail. I got a car note I got to pay. I got to do the thing that pays for that.
Right.
And what else are you doing right now to spend 15 minutes on the passion? What are you doing to spend 30 minutes on stoking the fire? What are you doing to spend 1 hour today? Everybody has, and the crazy thing, one of the things that I've seen in time, and I had to have a friend tell me to pull my head out, right? even in starting this, and that's a good friend. Trust me, my best friend. In restarting this podcast, I had several iterations of it. And he's like, dude, he goes, what are you doing to at least just make a plan? Come up with it. Spend 15 minutes a day, because he knew that's all I could think about was like, how do I get, recreate the voice and share my voice and share with people so that I could be impactful and so forth. And he's like, just start planning it out. But it's like, so often and some of that, you may have already done part of the thing. You may have already done part of what you're passionate about. And so then you're like, man, I feel like I have to start over. Yes. And what are you doing to spend 15, 30 minutes an hour and so forth?
Right. And I think that's what I meant. We were talking about the leadership, throw all that away. I think that's the part that I was trying to articulate is like, I believe in leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. But it's what happens behind the scenes when you're not getting the paycheck, when it's not working out how you think it is. That's the reality of leadership. Is like most of the time with leadership, you have a plan and everyone has a plan until you get kicked in the face or punched in the face. I think that's Mike Tyson. So
Mike Tyson. Yep.
But no, it's true. Like it was, and what I also have seen, and I've been able to help consult and work with a lot of businesses since I've been doing this, is that a lot of the times that this starts out as a hobby and then you get really good at your hobby. And then from that, because the hobby is the passion. And then from that, it was a hobby of building playsets for 5 years. And then we got serious about it. And now we've built thousands across the country.
So cool, man. It is so cool. So, we're sort of coming down to the tail end. So, we're about 10 minutes. I know, both of us have some engagements this afternoon. So as we come down to the tail end of this, a couple of things. One, if you have the time in the future, I'd love to have you back on the show, because I know there's a
Sure.
couple other topics that you'd brought up that I'd love to explore more, and we've maybe just scratched the surface on some. Any final thoughts, Eric, that you'd like to take us out on the show this afternoon? Anything that we haven't touched on, and you're like, yes, and I want to share this.
Oh man, I think with anything, with any business, with any leadership, I think one of the best statements that I've been taught from my many mentors that have helped me navigate this mountain climb, if you will, of owning a business, running a nonprofit, whatever it may be, is just be willing to test hard and pivot often. I think you got to test an idea and then you do it one time, and don't wait for perfection or you'll never launch. Do it one time. So whatever that burning desire is, do it one time, test it. And then guess what? After you do it, pivot, make it better, and do it again. Do it again. And so the first place that we ever built took us 19 hours to do. And I knew it wasn't sustainable. So the way that Roc Solid has made it sustainable is we sell these as team building exercises all over the country. Partner with Amazon, Disney, LA Dodgers. All these companies want to do team building exercises, which that's great. We're going to be the best team building exercise company out there. But then the return, the problem that I'm solving is they get to build the play set, and then I get what I want, which is the kid fighting cancer to receive play. And so companies would not latch onto that if we didn't test hard or pivot often. And so now NASCAR just broke the record. They built a play set, mulch and everything, in an hour. And so the way that it went from 19 to 1 hour, and the average time now takes a company about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And the way that we were able to do it, we didn't wait for perfection. We did it at 19 hours. And now 16 years later, an hour and 3 minutes, I think, is what we're able to do it in. So test hard and pivot often, no matter what.
That's awesome. I visualize those NASCAR guys that are.
It was exactly. They walked up in white smoke. Like I was like, "Are they walking in slow motion?" And my buddy was like, "I think so, man." So it was. We've been blessed, but the better I can love and serve them, the better I can love and serve them, meaning the pediatric cancer community.
Absolutely phenomenal. Eric, I can't thank you enough for your time today, man, and just sharing some of your story, certainly some of your heart. If you would just hang out for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and take us out for the afternoon. Okay.
Sure. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. So that is going to bring us to a close today, to another episode of the Leadership Toolkit. And I encourage you, please go check out Eric Newman's stuff. Check out the Roc Solid Foundation, participate. If there's something, I didn't even know, as he brought up here at the end, team building opportunities and so forth. So people that are in business and you're saying, hey, I want a good way to help build my team, get people connected, be able to communicate, create some synergy, and make a difference. Holy cow, man. That's awesome. So check out rocsolidfoundation.org. That's ROCSOLID foundation.org. I won't try and spell foundation again. And then also on YouTube, I encourage you. I'm a huge fan of YouTube because then we can see the things that happen. So youtube.com/Roc Solid Foundation. So check out Eric's, the stuff that he's doing in Roc Solid Foundation and his team, and how they're impacting and changing the face of joy and healing in pediatric cancer. I think it's awesome. Also, if you would do me a favor, one of the ways this show grows, the Leadership Toolkit, is please throw some thumbs up on the show, whatever platform you're watching it on, whether you're watching it live now or if you're watching it later on. Certainly it's on Spotify and YouTube and Apple, all the other platforms. Please throw some likes on that, share it out, because that's awesome. But most importantly, if you know somebody that would be impacted by hearing today's show or hearing this story, just share it with them. It's one of the most powerful things you can do. Say, man, I've got this friend that would really benefit by hearing this. They wanted to start a nonprofit and you want to see something that's on the other side, or there's a piece of Eric's story. Just take that step, click the share button, share it with them, because it's more impactful to that individual. And I'm more worried about that even than sharing the show, so to speak. Right. So I would appreciate it. Thank you everybody for tuning in and joining me today on the Leadership Toolkit. Until we speak next, stay great. We'll see you next week.